Hello, and welcome to another edition of On the Hill Media. I'm Fosi Wesson, and today from District 43, candidate for delegate, Mr. Rodney Burris. How you doing?
Hello, Fosi. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you first tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I would love to. Again, my name is Rodney C. Burris. I live here in Baltimore, Maryland, and I'm representing the 43rd District. The 43rd District is everything that runs between York Road, Harford Road, the city-county line, and North Avenue. And we are trying to make changes here in the city as it relates to our school system and some of the more local issues involving alcohol laws and things of that nature. Also, Fosi, just a little bit more about myself. My wife and I both graduated from Johns Hopkins University. We met there. We were college sweethearts. We have 3 beautiful children, a 5-year-old daughter, a 3-year-old son, and a 1-year-old daughter. Our oldest daughter is in the city school system here in Baltimore, and I'm pleased to say that I'm a proud parent of a Baltimore City School student. We live in the Govans part of town, for those of you who are familiar in Northeast Baltimore. This is my city. You know, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be involved. I was born here. All of my family, my aunts, my uncles are here, and it's important to me to help us affect change for the better here in Baltimore.
Now, if elected, what do you hope to do within your first semester there?
Well, if elected, we want to make sure that we do a couple things, and most of that hinges on making sure that education in our state is fully funded, especially as it relates to Baltimore City.
Sounds good. Now, as we move forward with the environment, we know we have a Go Green initiative coming down from Washington. Absolutely. What are some of your ideas to get some of your local constituents on that?
How do we get local constituents involved? Well, actually, Fosi, I've been involved in that prior to running for office. There was an initiative in my city to increase recycling efforts around the city. And so we switched our trash and waste pickup from twice a week to once a week, and made that additional day a recycling day. That threw a lot of people off in the city. A lot of people who've been living here all of their lives were used to having 2 pickups per week. And so in order to address that questioning that was going on, that buzz around the community, I pulled together a couple of my colleagues in the neighborhood, a couple of my neighbors, and we put together a big block party. Now, it was billed as a block party, but it really was a workshop to inform our neighbors and our constituents about recycling, about the move to 1 trash pickup versus 1 recycling day per week. We brought individuals down from the Department of Public Waste. We had our city councilman there. We had tents set up. We had free food because we wrote some grants. So we were able to give away free recycling bins. The city is selling those bins. We gave away several for free, a good many. We had free food and free games for the children. It was a big day around educating and encouraging our neighbors to be involved, because in the long run, this not only helps us presently, but it helps our kids in the future. I actually have pictures about that if anybody's interested on my website. We wore yellow shirts and we just had a big day with it. My website, I can give it out now, or we can give it out at any other point, but I can give it out now?
Go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, the website is electrodneyburris.com, and I have a little slideshow there, and you can see pictures from that event. So we have been involved, and I think the way to do it is that we don't make it burdensome on our neighbors and on our family and friends, but we kind of encourage and show how we can make this better for all of us. And that's the approach that we took last time.
Now, we know this year alone that we have a lot of problems with big business and regulations.
Yes, sir.
What is your ideas on protecting our natural resources here in Maryland?
Protecting our natural resources. Fosi, I actually saw a report. Like I said, being at Hopkins, you're privy to a lot of research, a lot of data that comes through the system. And I saw a report not too long ago that basically listed the Chesapeake Bay Bridge as a prime location for producing wind energy. And so I read into it, this was some years ago, but as a state delegate, I would love to revisit that issue, revisit that opportunity, and see, could we in fact either from on the bridge itself putting wind turbines, or underneath in the current having hydro turbines to help us produce natural energy from the currents that already blow through there, either the wind currents or the water current. And I think that if we start taking those type of approaches, something that doesn't directly take away from the environment, but it takes advantage of the natural flow that's there, we can kind of begin to combat some of our waste. We can actually create jobs, you know, putting those turbines up there and monitor them. Things of that nature would entail people working. We would need people to do that. Having that approach, revisioning how we look at energy, how we look at business and the environment will help us move along those lines. And so one of the things I want to do as delegate is take a look at that report that I saw a few years back, pull that back up and then sit down with some of my colleagues and my research team. I've been blessed to have some people that work with me to see if we can really practically implement this on a state level here in our city.
In the next legislation year here in Maryland, we know that the state delegation has to make $1 billion in budget cuts. What is your ideas on making this successful?
That's a good question, Fosi. The truth of the matter is our city, our state, our nation is in a recession. You know, we're in a period of economic downturn. And that's the reality that we're living in. Families all over, my own family included, we're all tightening our belts. You know, we're all kind of getting under this burden and seeing how can we make more happen with less resources. That's just the state of where we are. And so with that being said, certain cuts are going to come down the pike. With that being a given, there's certain things in our own households that we hold as standards. There's certain things that we feel are essential to our livelihoods. And one of the things that I feel on a state level that's essential to our future and us progressing and moving forward is education. We got to make sure that we fund education and other essential services. Now, as far as breaking down the particulars of how can we successfully cut back $1 billion out of a statewide budget, that's going to take some research. You know, that's going to take having the due diligence of sitting down with people that understand economics, that understand budgetary processes, and other people that are just vested in the value. A lot of times where we allocate money reflects where our values are. And so when you have people that share your values and you have people that understand the budgetary process, then we can take an in-depth look at what our situation is and make those cuts. Specifically from my position as a delegate, I think our campaign speaks to that. We have done, Mr. Weston, phenomenally well as a campaign using a fraction of the cost that a lot of the experts say it takes in order to run a campaign on this level. And that's because we've buckled down. In the beginning, when we first started this about 1.5 years, almost 2 years ago, we sat down, we looked at what we had, we looked at what we were trying to accomplish, and we realized our goal wasn't to raise so much money. Our goal wasn't to define our success by having a huge bank account. But our goal was to make sure that we were connecting and building relationships. And if that was the end goal, what was the most effective way to make those relationships? And that's having in-person conversations like what we're having now. That's actually going out, being a part of the people and showing that we are in this together. That mentality, being able to bring that into Annapolis, bring that into what we're dealing with the budget, is going to stretch a lot further than let's just cut programs. Let's just cut funding. Let's raise taxes. That's not the approach. It's happened in the past and it's gotten us to where we are now. So we need to relook at how we're doing that. And our campaign shows that. So I would love, as your delegate, to bring that to the table and continue the work that we're doing through the campaign for our families here in the city and in the state. Another thing that, if I may, that I would like to bring up, Fosi, is finding innovative ways to bring in resources, bring in revenue. Taking a look across the spectrum of what we have and what we don't have, what's currently being taxed, what isn't being taxed. Something that stands out is the alcohol industry. The alcohol industry hasn't seen an increase in their taxes in our state since about 1972. Now, that's fine, but the deal is since 1972, your costs have gone up, my costs have gone up, the cost that our families deal with every day has risen. And again, like we said before, because we're in this recession, because we're all tightening our belts, we all are learning how to take the money that we have and make it stretch. One of the things that good community partners do is help us shoulder the burden that we're all facing.
Right.
And so one of the things that I would like to see happen, one of the things that I've talked to several people around the community, several people around the city, and something that keeps coming up is, how is it that a particular industry that can stand alone and get the benefit of our patronage not really shoulder the burden with us as we're dealing with this tough economic time? That's a very valid point. And so one of the things that I would like to see is a nominal increase in their taxes, not to overtax a particular industry over another one, but just as being a good community partner, as we all are shouldering this burden, how can we take the alcohol tax and raise it that 10 cent? The measure on the table is that we raise it 10 cent per bottle. So if you have a 6-pack, think about it. That's just 60 cent extra on a 6-pack. It's not that much more, right? But when you multiply it times the state, that additional revenue could go to some of the jobs, go to some of the schools, help us with some of the things that we're dealing with. So as a state legislator, as your delegate, one of the things that I would love to see is us bringing that additional revenue by not hurting or penalizing the alcohol industry, because they've been here. They've helped dollars recirculate through our system. But if we can do the 10 cent increase on the alcohol tax, it could definitely help us and our families.
Now, we know this year, not this year, but in the past years, Maryland schools have been in the top 10 in the nation, but we also have schools in the bottom 10 in the nation as well.
Absolutely.
What do we need to do to improve this?
From the state level, a lot of it involves funding. We have to equip schools and school districts with the ability, with the resources to make the changes and improvements that are necessary in their particular districts. That's not possible if we keep taking from that pot. It's not possible if we can continue to cut their resources, their programming ability. So from the state level, as a delegate, my voice would go to making sure that we advocate for Baltimore City schools and schools everywhere around the state, because education is important for our children, whether they're your children or my children. It's important, but specifically for Baltimore City schools, if we as a state, and I'm speaking to my fellow neighbors and residents that live here in the state, if we as a state enjoy our status as being one of the top-ranked states in the nation for education, then we have to understand that a part of that status comes from partners like Baltimore City and some of the other districts that need to step up to where some of our stronger counties are, some of our stronger districts. The way to do that is to equip Baltimore City and such districts with the wherewithal, with the ability and the finances to have the programming, the teachers, the infrastructures to make those things happen. So from the state level, we need to make sure that we fully fund education, that we fully fund the Thornton spending bill. You can research that, or you can actually go on my website. I have a link to it. But we need to make sure that we keep those things fully funded so that we can enjoy our status as being a strong state for education.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Mr. Burris.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate the opportunity.
Not a problem. For more information about Mr. Rodney Burris, please visit his website at electrodneyburris.com. And for all other information, please visit our website, onthehillmedia.com.